Hey everyone, talking date. Already off to a bad start. Everyone, talking game dev podcast. Today, my guest is One Up Indie, the one and only. How you doing today?
I'm pretty fine. So all is working pretty cool. I got some great ideas for a new video game which I want to do, but cannot spoil it. Kind of crazy idea. Nobody actually has done that. Hopefully, it won't be completely a dumpster fire, but I guess not. So we're gonna see about that.
Oh snap! So you
Um,
can't say anything about it. You're just gonna tease us with this mystery concept and give us nothing.
yes, I'm gonna completely give you a blank because the idea is great. I don't know. Maybe it's completely terrible, but Hmm. Should I tease it? Should I tease it not? Well, let's say it's something from the 80s and a little bit of how do you call those actually games? I don't know, like visual something something. Like if you just got
Visual
dialogue
novel?
and do visual novel, but not the pervy one, but something wholesome.
Sure.
Bec- because most of them are like, let's be honest, most of those things are
But
going
you
in a
like to
specific
date the
direction.
anime girl.
Or the pigeon, or the pigeon. I've seen there's like one of the most famous one is where you're dating pigeons.
I
Why
don't know
would you
anything
want to do
about
that?
this.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. People just like stuff which is weird, and therefore, it completely caught my eye because why would you want to do this? But as it seems, a lot of people bought the game, so a lot of people want to do this. So no judgment on those people. This
Sweet.
is,
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, we're off to a great start. We're talking about dating pigeons. So I know you from your YouTube videos, which I don't know if most of the people that talk to you online know you from your YouTube channel. Which I'm kind of curious in is not everyone that makes games wants to do like YouTube content and stuff and tutorials that thing. Like, what got you into that?
Well, the idea was actually pretty simple. So I thought, like, hey, I want to do something in Unity, and it was as great as it always is with Unity, and therefore I completely ditched it. And then I just said, like, okay, the next engine, let's go with the GameMaker. And GameMaker actually was pretty decent, worked fine and so on. And then I was looking up resources like everybody else. Hey, YouTube tutorial on do a platformer, do this and this, and most of them were, let's call it sub good to terrible to not good at all, and nobody actually and a lot of things were just misleading. I thought, like, hey, I need my own stuff, and I thought, like, hey, if I understand it, I could actually do the same thing on my side and just make video tutorials just teaching you how stuff actually works and try to package it in a in an easy way, because a lot of times people who do those technical videos are, and then you do x and x plus blah blah blah, and then after 2 minutes you completely zone out because this guy isn't just in another headspace. So I try to make it as easy as possible and be, how can you call it? An
Entertaining,
easier.
engaging.
Yes, that thing. So basically, a lot of videos are super dry and it's super annoying to look and watch and just try to follow it. And I try to break it down and make it usable for everybody. And on the way, I'm just making my game.
Yeah, and so
That's
I guess accessible would be another word.
Yes. That's one of the other things. So, for example, I guess everybody went to school and you have like three types of teachers. One is the guy which is like super entertaining, he's funny or she is funny, and you don't learn anything. They're just great entertainers, just absolute great entertainers, but nothing is, you got completely a blank spot what you did actually the last, I don't know, 45 minutes or less or more. And then you got the opposite, which is like, super proficient, knows what to do, and just talks all the time with the board, and everybody's sleeping. Nothing is happening. And then, yeah, that's the guy, excellent sleeping pills. So one of them, my mathematics teacher, excellent guy. So if you have problems with sleeping, he will cure you forever. He was that good. And then you need to be in between, an entertainer, but also try to teach people. And I try to fill that gap because, well, it was there, so I just filled the void.
Yeah, perfectly balanced as everything should be. So you felt like, basically, if I understand you right, that the tutorials just weren't there, and so you wanted to make the kind of tutorials that you would want to watch as
Mhm.
you were learning. Is that fair?
Yes. Yes, yes. And on the other side, I wanted to do my own game. And if you understand something really good, then you can actually teach it to the next person. So
Yeah, so that's kind of like a litmus test to see if you can't teach it, perhaps you don't fully understand it, right?
yeah, correct. And on the other side, it's actually not a bad idea to have a YouTube channel because in the end, some people just come to you because they want to, they have a specific problem. Just type in like, hey, how to bounce a ball or how to do this and that, and then just come to you. And you can actually use it for marketing for your own game, just making devlogs. You can, recruit people. You can meet other people. So, for example, this is how, for example, you met me. Like, for example, you just watch my stuff and you thought like, hey, let's contact, let's talk, maybe do some collaborations, which mostly completely fail. So this is one of the great things about indie developers. Most of that stuff fails, but it's great. The and I'm actually kind of how can I say it? Really grateful to have this community, which gives me most of the time good feedback. Some are really evil people, but this is the way it goes. This is YouTube, so you
Yeah.
have both sides.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of angry comments or just about, I guess, the average amount that you'd get on YouTube?
Interestingly, very low. I
Mm.
am. I seem to be all not interesting enough to be, trolled, or maybe just people, just people like, yeah, that's just mathematics. That's just programming. I won't bother. Next guy,
Yeah.
because some people like really get off on that stuff, like, yo, but this is correct and blah blah blah. And some people actually do like to go on the other side. So, for example, videos which are being watched just for I don't know, hate. I guess it's called hate watching. So they just say something antagonizing or write something, and you just like, oh, I hate this, but you watch it,
Yeah.
and
You
then like,
just like
yes, yeah, that thing, that
junk
thing.
food. I know this is bad for me, but I'm just scarfing it down type of thing.
Yeah, and it's much better than, let's say, wholesome stuff. So, if you want to fill a gap, well, go in the other direction. Be evil, as it seems.
Dang, man. Yeah. So one thing I thought was it's interesting just in my experience, I made that
Mhm.
Sonic fan game. So you're dealing with a lot of people's childhood and nostalgia and games that people have played 100 times. Um, so if there's something that's just even a pixel off, dude, boy, people are right all over it,
Yeah.
and stuff. And
Mhm.
I should preface this by saying I've been incredibly grateful for everyone that's been very positive about it. But it is interesting just to see how people you've never met have no bounds, just like going for you. It's like, oh, you worked really hard on this. That's cool. Why is the pillar off by 3 pixels to the left when it shouldn't be? And I'm like, I don't know, man, because I was worried about fixing crash bugs and the night before shipping, so I didn't care about the 3 pixels of the pillar and stuff. But yeah, it's good to have mostly kind of positive thing and stuff. And you mentioned like the indie game community, which is, I think GameMaker specifically seems to have like a good bunch of folks. Would you agree with that?
Um, I would say it's one of the smaller communities, but it's a more positive one. I don't know, but the other ones, for let's say you got the guys which try to convert you. Hey, like, hey, do you hear about Godot
Yeah, it
or
was gonna be
Unity?
Godot. It's gonna be
Godot,
Godot.
it's gonna be Godot. It's like one of those guys. Have you heard the good news of our new Lord Godot? And they really try to convert you. It's kind of an interesting thing because it's free. It's bigger than than GameMaker by a long stretch. But because it's free and you don't have to invest, people just don't see it as valuable. And GameMaker has a long history of some really stellar titles,
Yeah.
and it's actually part of the school curriculum, I guess, in England and a little bit in America.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, there are some courses on that,
Yeah, I
and
think here in Austin we had some. I have a coworker that was saying she did a lot of game maker prototypes in school and that type of thing. And another coworker I'm thinking of as well. Yeah, so because I think it's really good for fast prototyping, right? I think that's game maker's advantage is the speed. You know what I mean?
it's completely easy. It's lightweight. It's like, I don't know, an empty project is like, I don't know, 4 MB. If you go Unity, 400 or something, just nothing in there. It's just 400. What do you need that for? Well, I guess.
Is that what
So
brought you to game maker?
yes, because it allows you a lot of things and it's super lightweight. You just press F5 and you instantly see what kind of stupid things you did, and it's perfect. I love it. It's so once again, it's excellent for a prototyping. So of course, if you want to go really professional, GameMaker is not a thing. I guess Unreal Engine, if I see what they do there, oh
Yeah.
my
Well, what do
God.
you mean by professional? Toby Fox says
Um,
hi, and
well, in professional, I mean, let's say if you want to go in the industry, so let's say all those car commercials are actually made in the Unity engine.
so
And a
you're
lot of
saying
people
like go
don't.
work at a studio.
Yeah, just go work at a studio and say, let's say, hey, let's make a commercial for, I don't know, for the newest BMW. And everything is done in the Unity engine. It's just not Unity, I mean, in the Unreal, excuse
Yeah.
me, in the Unreal engine. And it looks really, really, really good. And those professionals just use that engine. So nobody would say, let's make the new BMW in GameMaker.
Yeah. The
You
man,
won't be hearing that.
the Mandalorian isn't using their backdrops with GameMaker, right? But they are using
Yeah.
Unreal. So you had brief experience with Unity, but it wasn't cutting it for you, which is kind of
Um,
interesting for me because Unity is everywhere. It feels like standard, but kind of can't get into it. I'm a GameMaker dude. Like, what would you
mhm.
say?
Um, the point is, Unity has a lot of things going for it. It has a lot of things built in, which are great. But you see all the time, let's say games, you can instantly see, okay, that was made in Unity. The lighting system is always the same. And if you try to make projects, it's convoluted. You don't have that in GameMaker. Of course, GameMaker has its own challenges just going into it. But Unity was just putting me off. I don't know. I was loading some assets, and then it took me like 2 hours just to load it. Then it was not the one which I wanted. It's like, I wasted 2 hours for nothing. And that was really annoying. And therefore, GameMaker, just open it up. Oh, it's there. Nice.
Yeah, for me, it was a
Easy.
speed thing, And obviously, I'm a Sonic fan, so I got to go fast. But it's just like
Mhm.
it's quick and dirty. Gets me, it's like, and I also love pixel art games, so I'm not worried about like the lack of like proper 3D or anything like that.
Well, that's the thing. If you want to go with a 3D crowd or with a smaller nostalgic, pixel art crowd, and I do love pixel art games. They're pretty primitive in the way what they do, but they do it so well. And I don't know, you can always bank on nostalgia just with pixel art games. And therefore, I want to go and stay there. The question is if there will be a market in 20 years with pixel art games. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure about that, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting thing, but I'd like to hope that it's its own sort of art form and art style at this point that'll just live on, in the same way that like, I mean, how many bands and musical artists will intentionally make their stuff sound a little muddy or dirty because they love all their favorite records from the 60s or 70s or that type of a thing, So to me, that's kind of like, I mean, you think like somebody like Jack White or White Stripes, like their music's always like really crusty sounding because they want that retro thing. And that's sort of what I think pixel art is for games, right? It's so foundational to the medium that I'm hopeful that it'll never go away. And I hope it does not because boy, I love me some crunchy pixels. But that actually makes me think of going back when we were talking about, foundational to it is I think to make games, you gotta like games. So what was it for you that got you into games?
Well, I always had like games around me. So I had a Game Boy. I played on the Nintendo, later on the Super Nintendo. I just grew up with that stuff. So I do love playing video games, and it shifted a little bit, later on to PC because the consoles are a little bit expensive, and a lot of things, for example, just were, I don't know. Let's say I played my first Command Conquer One, and I loved it. There were some video sequences and a new RTS style, and everything was, new. And for example, you had to wait for a new game. Nowadays, it's like, I don't know, 60 games a day being released on Steam. That's just absurd, It's a different dimension. And that's why I can see that a lot of people just have tons of nostalgia for the Sonic games, the Super Mario games, because they released, I don't know, every 4, 5, 6 years. And then you had really something to look forward to. Nowadays, not so much.
So was there like that one game that made you go like, I want to make this. I want to make
Ah,
games.
Okay, I need to need to answer your question. Yeah, I completely skipped on that.
No, that's fine.
So basically, so basically, I just wanted to make games, and because in the end, I love making playing video games. I thought like, hey, it could be the same, and I have an affinity for programming, so that that's actually a good mixture. Because a lot of people think like, hey, I love playing video games, so I'm gonna make my dream career as a game maker. Ooh, yeah, there are some challenges, you know. You need to do and know a lot of things. You need to be, you know, really robust, and most people don't have that, sadly, to be honest. But this is the way it goes, you know. Some people just go through and some not. But this is
Yeah,
the
that's what I was going to ask if like what your background is, because so you
um
would say
um
it's a programming
computer
background.
science. Yeah, computer science in university. So basically, I got a degree in that. But the question is just, you know, do you have to love programming to make video games? And my answer is no, absolutely not.
I hope not, because I hate programming.
Yeah, then actually I have good news for you, because in the end it has become even more easier. The the way, for example, I don't know, GameMaker is just evolving a lot, and all the other engines. It has never been this accessible. And at some point, and this is high speculation on my side, there will be I call them game design weavers, because they will utilize the AI, just say the right keywords, platformer, I want this and this and this and that, and then the AI will be at some point smart enough just to realize and actually create that game. And that's where games become really worthless, because everybody can do it. You know, if you can just do it with a few words, then the ones with the best ideas will be the ones which create, you know, excellent games.
Yeah, yeah. See, I think that way they would be worth this. They almost would just the cream would really rise to the top because of that
Yes.
level playing field. Because that's the thing that so I did say earlier I hate programming. I don't know if I really hate programming. I have like a love hate relationship. It's definitely not a programming background, right? I come from a music background, right, and like an audio
Mhm.
background, and just like storytelling in general. Um, so, but you have to know programming in order to make it happen. So it's just something I sort of forced myself. I don't have any sort of computer science. I've never taken a single programming class or anything
Mhm.
like that. Just sort of had to, brute force it. And so there is something satisfying about programming, about, inputting something and be able to see your results instantly if it worked or not. But boy,
Mhm.
the heads you can butt up against. So that's why I think it's good that game development is getting more accessible, because I think
Mhm.
I'm going to speak in sort of role stereotypes here in terms of programmers, artists, that type of thing. But I think if only programmers were the only ones able to make games, I feel like the kinds of games you would see would be a lot different than if artists, people who come from an art background, or people come from a audio background, or people like tabletop or whatever. There's a lot more ideas to be had when you have all those different perspectives. You look back at the start of the gaming industry, it was basically like you have to be a programmer to make anything, and you still see a lot of that. Like the CEO of Epic Games is a programmer. Doom was really a big programmer based game from John Romero and uh, Carmack, who is just left recently, but was at freaking Meta, a giant Facebook, a giant company like that. But I think over the years you see, hopefully that has gone down. It has gone down less and less, where it's not just all a bunch of programmer, very computer science minded people calling on a shot. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if you have more types of different perspectives, I think you get more different types of play and different types of games and that kind of thing. So I am
Mhm.
glad that it's getting accessible, and I think that's like an awesome thing. Do you feel what I'm saying?
I do understand. Um, Actually, not disagreeing, because if you would just have people which have just a programming background, they make terrible games. They are logically sound, they have the perfect loops and all that jazz, which is technical, but in the end, it's not fun. And therefore, you need to have different um, persons or amalgamations of characters which just put together a beautiful game. For example, the one programmer, he gets instructions. Hey, I want to have platforming, these systems, do it. And then the game designer, I guess you go more in the direction of the game designer, where you just say like, hey, I have these great ideas. I just need to, fix a few variables, maybe the speed value, maybe this value, and then the game feels awesome to play. And I have those ideas which are just rapidly up. And then what you see a lot of times also, really good programmers are terrible at artistic ideas. And therefore, you need artistic people.
Yeah, and that's the unique blend of video games is the fact that it is so creative and so technical at the same time. I don't think we ever seen such a blend like that before, you know. I mean, I guess we have in many ways, like the fact that, you know, film is capturing images and light onto film is a, you know, wonderfully technical invention as well. But you bring up a good point about game design. I think game design is probably more important than anything else. Like you can have like a really good programmer and a really good artist, and you might end up with a game that looks really well, runs at an excellent frame rate, but is not fun. And that's ultimately, would you say that fun is the most important thing with games?
Oh, there are just if you could just mark it down to one, two things, that would be nice. But games are just so many things clashing together. So 50% is graphics. So first of all, if people just say, "Hey, this is an ugly duckling," not gonna play it. So this is one of the things. For example, but graphics don't need to be like high super definition 3D. They could be also pixel art. There's some beauty in that also. Then you have gameplay, which is like 30%, which is still huge because after you cross the first barrier, okay, I like the way it looks, then I like the way it feels. And the way it feels and plays is how often you get to do something. I don't know how many coins you can collect in a time. What kind of sound effects are being played? Is the music rocking? Is it pumping or is it boring? And this is where, once again, where you as an artist come in. And game design is absolutely crucial. But all of them, for example, you need to have the good programmer, but also you need to have more or less the good game designer. And of course, you need to have the good graphics. All together blend into a pretty sweet game. They're, of course, all around us. So in game design, what was it? The dude who made Stardew Valley. Um, he became
Eric
rich on
Barone.
GameMaker. Eric Barone, yeah. So this guy actually made an excellent game, and he did all by himself. So it's possible, but then you don't hear about the million other guys which completely failed. And therefore, it's always good to group up and go, this is my strength, this is your strength, and then just have a small team of 2, 3, 5 people. And then the end result will be much better than just you in your basement for 6 years, like, yeah, grinding it out. And then you just present it to the world, and the world's like, yeah, we don't care.
Yeah.
That can happen, This is the heartbreaking thing. But of course, if people love it, they will just, memorize you for eternity, which is also a sweet thing.
You do bring up a good point about art and the look of the game playing such a big role in getting people in the door, right? Because you can't just hand them a controller. Like the first thing somebody sees is a screenshot or a trailer or a video or that type of thing, right? I guess what I'm trying to say is I think that like the moment to moment game design has the lasting power, right? If it looks good, you can get them in the door, but if it's not fun, nobody's going to come back to that, for repeat playthroughs or year after year or that type of thing.
Oh, so what would you say is the excuse me? What would you say is the medium play time? What would you say? Just for a new game, any game, pixel arts, 3D, whatever.
Median playtime?
Yeah, medium play time.
Like somebody has purchased the game.
Yep.
Okay, and you mean a session or play session or a total time?
Oh, total time.
Man, I have no idea. I imagine most people pop in and play like an hour or two and then don't even finish it.
Yep, you're completely right. And that's why you have in Steam a refund policy of 2 hours.
Man.
It's pretty brutal. Mathematics, sometimes, statistics give you some really brutal insights into games, into what people do, what people don't, if they get a refund, and so on. And you need to leverage that into your advantage. So let's say you make your game. The first 2 hours need to be like crushing it. And if you are 4 hours, 5 hours in, and the game's like, oh, we didn't develop further, game is terrible, whatever. But if you just reach it into the first 2 hours, then you're solid and you're gold.
You s-
This is super cynical because you think you make a beautiful game, you just envision it 20 hours plus of gameplay and so on. You just get those fancy cool things, but most people don't even get to see them, which is, as an artist or a game designer, that's really, you put your heart in it and people won't be seeing it anyway. But you have to live with that. But a few people, those few, just love your game.
See, I love that because that's super practical, right? Just playing the
Yeah.
game, and that's based off the metric of Steam's refund policy, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a very real thing, right? Like, I mean, where are people playing PC games? They're playing on Steam. What is the refund policy? Well, if it's 2 hours, then make those first 2 hours absolute killer. It's smart. You think it's smart, wouldn't it, Bendy? That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, this is like hours of hours of hours of research in different kind of directions. So if you want to be a good, well, in quotations, I don't consider myself a good developer, but you need to have tons of information about marketing, gameplay, graphics, how art works, when to use art, when to use things, how to structure, then what people do in the first level, how menus should be looking. There's like tons of things. People just see, let's say, a cool little video tutorial of mine, a platformer, 20 minutes, I can do that. And then you think, yeah, I'm finished with the game. No, sir, there's tons of things you need to consider. But of course, you learn, this is not a journey of 2 weeks, but a few years. And you have
Yeah,
to invest in it.
as a indie dev, you're gonna have to be wearing a lot of hats, right? To do a lot of things. So are you completely solo when you work on your projects?
For the most time I was, but I partnered up with a few people, which made my life much, 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 much easier. Because once again, you are a lot of times in your tunnel, you're just driving through it like, yeah, yeah, everything is going great. But then if another person just pops in, like, why is actually that stuff here? And you're thinking, yeah, that's actually kind of a stupid idea. Why is that here? And then you just bounce back ideas, and then this thing disappears, and you polish your game. So a lot of times you just make your prototype, game is kind of finished, and then 2/3 of the time you're starting like polishing this little thing, polishing that little thing until it feels better. Because you cannot expect to have a raw diamond and just throw it in, say like, hey, that's my game. That doesn't fly in nowadays. It used to work. Oh, there's, for example, one game, I guess it's Ghosts and Goblins or Ghouls and Goblins, one of the hardest games Capcom has ever done, and it's practically unbeatable. So,
Yeah, but
I don't know.
that's
Have you
also
heard
an
of one?
arcade game, so you're trying to get quarters. So that's a completely different mindset. You know what I mean?
But I don't know what they were thinking. The point is, I tried it with an
They're thinking they
emulator.
wanted quarters, is what they want.
But how many quarters do you have to put in? Like, I don't know, your life savings? That game is ridiculously hard.
It is. Yes. Very much so. Yeah. There's a lot of them with varying names, ghosts and goblins, ghouls and ghosts, and that type of thing. But they're all very difficult. Yeah. So
If you could, yeah.
what were you saying?
No, no, just continue, please.
Um, when you say you've collabed and partnered with some people, with those fellow programmers or the artists, what sort of disciplines were you guys exchanging on?
Oh, different kind of things. So, for example, if you are just artists, so contractors to make some art, because finding good art is on all platforms difficult to do, and you just see like, okay, it's most of the time a patchwork of this style with this style with this style, and it's kind of terrible, to be honest. And therefore, you at some point you say like, okay, do you really want to have a good game? Yes, we need to buy some stuff, and sometimes you even have to order it, which is painful for a lot of indie developers, which just say like, hey, I just make my Super Mario game clone, or for example, I make my Sonic game. You have an advantage because you already have a, a library of assets which you can already use. And if you have your own game, you cannot just say like, "Hey, I just use the Sonic guy and maybe the Metroid some things," and you just take from all those. You cannot do that. Copyright it.
Yeah.
So
So,
It's
so you specifically, are you reaching out to artists for collaboration?
not just artists. Some people just contacted me and just said like, "Hey, let's do a game together." And if most of them kind of failed because bl- at some point people have just different visions, and some just lose, don't want to do anything because in the end they have better things to do because they think like, "Hey, this is a cool process at the very first 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, or maybe the first few months." You're thinking you got this high energy, like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do this game." But at some point, it simply plateaus and people just drop off. Like, maybe I want to do something else.
Yeah,
Just play video games.
you brought up, I think, two things that I found to be very important in my experiences. Number one, you learn more from finishing something than you do from working on something forever, right? And that I
Right.
think that finishing is a separate skill from making. So like you're making things that can go on forever, but finishing is a very decisive um, sort of mindset where you have to say, here's where it cuts off, here's where that's done, here's where that reaches its fullest potential type of thing.
Mhm.
Um, and the other thing would be that the thing you run into a lot of times with small projects, if it's just like two of you or something like that, is or especially like me, where I'm working on Sonic fan game where everything's free, no one's paid or anything like that, is that there's a weird sort of hierarchy or lack thereof where sort of everyone is equal. So it's hard to, sort of come to work through sort of your disagreements when there's no actual final say. Like if you're working on like a big game, there is a creative director, and then you have a design director and an art director, and all these, sort of you have that sort of pyramid from there. But when it's so small, you're all just kind of even, and if everyone's not all in charge at once, it's either fizzles out or somebody sort of merges from that. Do you know what I'm talking about at all?
Yes, but I guess you're talking about agency and involvement. So let's say you have a game and you want to sell it. Then it's completely different than if you just want to make a cool fan game and everybody can access it for free. Because first of all, you don't have a boss, you don't have a time limit, and if you finish it or not, it's not it's still in your hands, but you can drag it out as long as possible. But of course, if you are involved, let's say you have a team of three and everybody's getting a cut of the Steam sales, then you have a different mindset. And therefore, you just see, okay, there could be some potential, and then your work ethic is different because you kind of, how do you call it? You're just being a stakeholder. So basically, you're just more involved, and then if you give more life and more input, then it resonates in the game. In on the fan side, if you do those fan games, you don't necessarily have to do that. You can, and fan games are really cool. I already played it. Pretty nice. I guess I stopped at level 4.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
so, but at the very beginning, I almost stopped it because at the tutorial level, I didn't know how to fly up. That pretty much bugged me out a lot. I got stuck for 5 minutes at the very first level.
Oh wow. So you're
Yeah,
talking
but I
about
guess I'm
switching to
terrible.
tails and
Yes.
flying up? That's really
Yes.
funny. See, because playing Sonic since I was a kid, and then making this for presumably most people that are going to play this are also like Sonic fans. Um, I don't remember what it's like to not know how to fly with tails, so I've completely taken that for granted.
Yeah,
So
so as you can see, you're completely, you are in your bubble, which is great. But for me, I grew up with Nintendo. I know about Sonic. I played it, but
the
for me,
rival.
it's like how do I get up here? And then like jumping again and trying the helicopter thing. He kind of flies up, but not enough. And then like, okay, how do I solve this? In 5 minutes, just getting stuck in the first level. It's pretty embarrassing. It's not a good sign for me, I guess.
That's
But oh
interesting.
wait,
Yeah, wow. I never even thought about that. That's cool. Yeah, tutorials are hard though, man, because you have to find the balance between like just beating them over the head with "do this, moron, press the button," where it gets
mhm.
annoying, but also like not not giving them so much agency that they're like completely lost. You know what I mean?
But what kind of tutorial were you aiming for? Because there are like two, the organic ones and the ones where press A, this is for jumping, press this button, this is for dashing. Which one did you go for?
So for that, I was sort of trying to teach with the level design, so you can't clear that gap until you learn how to fly, right? So it's making sure that, hey, we can't go any further until you understand that you can. Well, actually, yeah, wow. I feel embarrassed
And that
now. But my main goal was actually to teach the switching mechanic. Because again, this is aimed at like Sonic fans. They know how to fly with Tails. But in most Sonic games, you either playing as Sonic or you're playing as Tails, but you don't switch back and forth. So that was the new thing in my game. So that's what I was really wanting to introduce. It's like, hey, if you're playing as Sonic, you can't get up here. Switch to Tails, and you can fly and get over. So I was so focused
Mhm.
on teaching the switching mechanic. I hadn't considered the flying being the issue. So that's
Alright.
really great.
Because I think a lot of the best tutorial levels are the ones which are organic. They're just you don't feel like it's a tutorial level, but it does teach you, new skills and how to get there. So a lot of games actually utilize that, and I do love it. So this is a thing which, for example, the old games of the 90s and 2000 actually never did. Tutorial level, what's that? Just go ahead and try it out. But
Read the
this could
manual.
or read the manual, but who does that anyway? Nobody. Do you know anybody who's reading manuals nowadays? I
Well, the
wouldn't
games
say
don't
that.
come with manuals anymore.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. But
Now my game does. And it's even, I don't know if you look, but in the game files, it comes with a little manual that's even made to look like it's a crappy photocopy of like a 90s game manual and stuff.
nice.
But
But that but
no one
that's
reads
it.
it,
That's
but
it.
that's fun.
Well, that's the thing. But still, this is kind of a nice touch. A few people would be just saying like, okay, this still, is the nostalgia thing, and they will definitely appreciate that. Of course, not me because I never read manuals and dialogues. Most of the time, I just skip it. Like, yeah, boring, skip, skip, skip. But this is a thing of the times. Sadly,
Oh, you don't read dialogue in games?
a lot of times I just completely skip it because it's pointless.
Oh
It's just
gosh.
gibberish. Like save the princess, go here, press X. Yeah, skip, 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 skip. Yeah, I know. This is I'm a terrible player. I know that,
Breaking
but
my heart.
there have been only a few instances where I say like, hey, I love to read the dialogue, and that was with the Messenger. Did you play it by any chance? The Messenger.
Oh no, I
Um,
haven't played it. Is that the
and
first person, right?
Nope. It's a side scroller. It mixes 16-bit bit and 13-bit. Just look it up. It's a pretty cool game.
Hang on,
It
I
was
gotta bring it up right now. But keep talking.
the Messenger. And basically, what you do here, you got some dialogues, which is just explaining why you're doing things. But the author did capture my attention because he's just giving some algorithms and some cool stories, which a lot of games don't do. A lot of games just see text as filler, and filler is terrible. Go and slay these 6 orcs. Thank you, hero. I
Okay.
don't care. I don't
Okay.
really care.
So it's not impossible for you to care about dialogue. You're saying that games need to have better dialogue.
It needs to be relevant for you because a lot of times I do understand, if you don't have any dialogues, it feels cheap. But if you fill it up with pointless blah blah, why should you want to read it? And then at some point you disconnect the player from the game, which is really a terrible idea. So for example, this newest one from Square Enix with the chick on those laser boots, I've completely forgot the sparkly thing. Do you know which game I'm talking about by any chance?
Yes, the name escapes me. It's like not the Forgotten. What is it?
Something with a gauntlet which can talk, and she comes from New York, and then she becomes a wizard instantly because reasons. Ah, terrible, terrible storytelling.
Hang on, I'm gonna get it put up. Forspoken. Yes.
Forspoken, yes, this game. As you can see, they already made such a great impression that I don't remember the name. So, beautiful game, advanced systems in the background.
The
Square
traversal
Enix.
looks cool.
The traversal, there's no. On the outside, it looks like a beautiful, excellent, fun game. But they managed to make the dialogue so asinine that people just at some point just disable it or mute it. This is then not what you want to have. You want that the people just be involved and say like, "Oh, I love the storytelling." Or for example, you do the inverse version, which I love the most, which is environmental storytelling. This is what the Dark Souls or the Elden Rings does. You have tons of symbolism and symbolisms, and then you got people in YouTube just explaining what this means, what that means, how that relates to the real world. For example, why you have those finger things. I don't know. Did you play Elden Ring by any chance? Or are you
No,
not one
I
of
I
those
don't
people?
I don't do from software games because I get too frustrated.
Okay, so this game is actually for people who have a high tolerance of BS because these games are just annoyingly difficult.
It's just not me. I'd rather read dialogue than deal with that hitbox.
Oh, all right. So basically, they just smuggled in a lot of influences culturally from history, and then just baked it into a new storyline. I love that, and people actually make on YouTube a career just deciphering those cool little hints.
So what was
And
it
then, for
about the
example,
messenger that hooked you though? That's what I'm really curious about.
um, it made me actually laugh. A lot of things, when you read it, it's bland, it's functional, it's okay, but it's boring. A lot of guys just all go completely over the top and just alienate it, like with Forspoken, or they just go on the safe route, which just the Ubisoft formula of being nothing, just lots of blah blah and nothing.
Shots fired
Yeah,
at Ubisoft.
yeah, but this is what they do, and they do it very efficiently. And you just have to recognize that they have great systems and people who write text, which are this specifically designed to not hook you too much, but just to give you a little bit of context. But the world telling, or for example, intricate little stories are completely buried. They're not relevant. It's just kill the boar, which now has level 13. Now kill the guy near the pyramid, which is level 58. That's it. That's the whole game.
Now, I'd argue there's a lot of people though that really eat that stuff up. What you would call filler dialogue. There's a lot of people that still will just read every word and love every bit of every character interaction
Mhm.
and that sort of type of thing, right? That's why I'm so curious about why the messenger's the one that passes the test. Because I imagine they had to have done something at the start that made you continue to made you want to get infested. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. So it was kind of easy for me because first of all, they did the platforming really good. And then at some point, I wanted to know what's actually happening at the next thing. And then you had
Oh,
some in um, optional texts, so dialogues with one of those NPCs. They're just like three or four, so it's extremely limited. And he's just giving you a long story about something, and then the main hero just asks, "Okay, why did you tell me that story?" Like, no, I don't know. Just I thought it's a cool story. And then the guy just says like, "Hey, so did you just waste the last 2 minutes?" And he's, yes. And they're like,
okay.
what? And then this is just completely um, obstructing things or just diverting your expectations, like really, not what Ubisoft and all the others say, like diverting expectations, blah 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 blah. But the point is, you cannot mesh, let's say, the Messenger or indie games together with Ubisoft. Two completely different beasts and entities. The one has a huge team of graphic guys, story writers, guys which polish the engine, which is really really good. So highly professional people, but they know what they're doing, and what they are focusing on is not the superfluous or the excellent gameplay. They are focusing more on how to oh, this little microtransaction here. Oh, hey, hello there. Or this little thing which you could do here. And then they build a formula which is keeping you on a treadmill. It's like a second job. All these games
You're
of
talking about the
Ubisoft feel like
grindy
a second
nature
job.
of stuff, right?
Not just grindy nature. They are just, you feel guilty if you see those markers and you have to do this and this, and it's completely filler
The
content.
map
It's
pulls up and it's
pointless.
bloop, 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 bloop.
Yep, that thing. And for example, indie games, first of all, don't have the luxury of doing so because we are not 100 people. We are just like two, three. And therefore, we are consistently, because of constraints, um, having a small world which we are trying to guide you through. And therefore, the experience is different. For example, I do understand that people actually love to, switch off the brain. Let's play Call of Duty. Switch off the brain, play a Ubisoft game, and it works perfectly. I love the Far Cry games, but I don't even know if there is a difference between three to, I guess we are six now or seven. It's the same game. It's absolutely the same game. It's beautiful. It works great. I have no idea what I did there. I cannot recollect it. But some games I do. And this is the difference. For example, on Elden Ring, I remember a few things which I did there. On Dark Souls, this one enemy which just stabbed me over and over and over again, threw me into a pit or whatever, and then I had to restart. And it's like, but you remember that guy. In Ubisoft, you don't remember one thing.
Does Ubisoft not make you angry enough? Is that the thing?
No. Ubisoft has a specific clientele of people which love to play, and they love their games. And it's completely fine. I'm not like smashing on it. It could be EA. It could be those bigger. But I find them, I don't know, boring.
Would you ever consider working at like a large studio or anything?
No,
No.
absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
No,
Give me the
absolutely
juicy
not.
takes.
No. That's the thing. I've worked for bigger, companies and publishers and all that stuff. Oh, they are so rigid. They are so, you're constrained in your bubble. You have to do this, and it has specific rules which do work. There are specific workflows. You cannot say here. You cannot deviate because deviation is not a thing which they want to see. So creative processes are completely cut out because nobody needs creative. We are here to make money. We're not here to, make a great game. We are here to make money. And this is, of course, a healthy way. But it becomes a little bit unhealthy if you just sprinkle in, let's say, what game 20%, 80% transactions, and then you're just starting to be a little bit, aware of that too much. And this can backfire. For example, all the stocks of all the big publishers are just going downwards because they just milk the people too much dry. You can do it a little bit, I do understand. You make a great game, you can say $50 or $60, acceptable. But if you just milk me after that and just milk, at some point, some people just say, okay, I'm not gonna buy a new game from, I don't know, Ubisoft or EA. I haven't bought a game from EA for the last 8 years, 9 years, maybe 10.
What was the last one?
The last one was the Command and Conquer something trilogy.
Oh, they got you with
the whole
Command and
package.
Conquer again. Back to your childhood.
Yes, this is one of the, and then you just playing the games and you're thinking, wow, that game wasn't that good. Because but just imagine, you have those great experiences and things of the past. And if you once again go and try those really early games, like let's say Super Mario 1, the controls are terrible. The controls are completely terrible. But nowadays we expect
I would say terrible.
But they're not terrible, but they are not as you remember them. You remember, let's say, high graphics. You remember that the controls are snappy and everything is working fine. There are specific standards nowadays. They didn't exist like 10, 20 years ago. But you expect them to be in your nostalgia bubble in your old games. But if you fire up those old games, they don't have them. They don't have even half of that. But this is the way nostalgia and reality, kind of bite each other a little bit. But that's completely all right.
Yeah. So game design in general, I think, is sort of progressed over time because a lot of those games, like you're just learning people are just learning how games even like worked, right? You're sort of building the cart as you're riding it and that type of thing. So it's all those little polish things, all your little coyote times and everything else that comes up from that. I'm curious, have you played God of War Ragnarok? The recent ones?
I wanted, but I did not. Graphically beautiful. Oh wait, I did actually play God of War on the PlayStation. What was it? 3. There were like the first part, the second part, and I guess the third.
So like the old games, the Greek games before they sort of rebooted.
Yes. So the ones with the Norse mythology on PC. This one I didn't play. I'm still up for that.
Okay.
But all of them are, how can I say it? Upgrades from the previous versions. So all of them were pretty good because sometimes you see a franchise just go down because not a lot of people are not interested at some point in it, or it became disappointing. But God of War consistently upgraded it. It's one raging dude with some cool mechanics, Greek mythology. Everything is actually working in those games, and it's just each new game is better. And I loved all of them. And the newest one, I just watched it, the cutscenes. Wow.
You did watch the
story writing,
cutscenes.
excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
okay.
did for the newest one because the storyline is pretty decent. You can say whatever you like about those games, that it's stupid or whatever, but the storylines is excellent. I
That's why I
loved it.
brought it up, is because we're talking about like filler dialogue, that type of thing. And I thought that God of War 2018 and the sequel had some of the best writing I've seen in games, and also really great performance from the performance capture actors and
Mhm.
everything else as well. So
Mhm.
basically, that was my test, to like saying, okay, is he a complete monster? Does he just hate all story?
No, no, no. I'm not a complete monster. But the point is, for example, you have a very specific story arc. So let's say you have the hero story. Are you familiar with that concept?
Like the hero's journey and stuff?
Yeah, the hero story, my bad. And this one is a thing which always works. It's beautiful. It's great. So, for example, Kratos is built up as this anti-hero at the very beginning, but later he becomes the hero. He overcomes. Also, Thor being at the very beginning not a very friendly guy, but you later on understand why he is the way he is. And this is great story writing. But if, for example, if you go to Hollywood, which is, by the way, smaller than video games, yes, that's one of the wins for us gamers. Um, they stop doing the hero story, and this is terrible. You have instantly like super characters, no flaws, everything is good, everything is great,
You think
and
they've
this is
stopped
how.
doing hero stories? Or
Yes, for example, you can see that in all new Jedi movies, the hero story is dead. You instantly, for example, let's say you see the very, if you're, I don't know, are you a Star Wars fan by any chance?
yeah,
I guess most are. So
every
um,
human is.
I wouldn't say every. I think it's great. It's like knights with in space. But basically, this is a knight story. But
Yeah,
it's a beautiful one. It's
a
a fairy
fairy
tale.
tale. Yeah,
It's a
Jinx.
cool fairy tale. And at the very beginning, you got this mud farmer or whatever he is. He's just small,
Moisture
unimportant. I
farmer.
don't know, mushroom farmer. My bad. I'm so sorry.
Moisture.
And
Sorry.
then, or a moisture farmer, whatever
Because he
that
lives
is
in the
on the
desert,
desert.
got to get moisture. Whatever, carry on.
So basically, he has like this super important task, and later on, he just becomes one of the most powerful Jedi to be ever existed. But he needed to go from step A to B and B, and he was just kicked down. But from getting kicked down, he became stronger, and he learned, and he overcome. And this is the hero's journey. And then nowadays, you see the chick. Oh yeah, by the way, I have this thing. I can instantly repair stuff because I don't know, I didn't learn it. I can do it. And then I'm fighting a trained guy, but no, hey, no problem because I got this magic MacGuffin and I can do everything because reasons. And if you don't give people, an incentive to invest into a character and see the journey, because she has no journey, she just pops in here and here and here and is fabulous. Boring. Who wants to watch a completely overpowered, I learn nothing character for 2 hours
Hmm.
consistently?
Yeah. I'd argue that you can tell a story like that as long as the people you can do a flip on it where the main character is like super powerful and stuff, but they're the inspiration for others around them, and everyone around them is having their own sort of individual hero's journey. But I'm curious, if you're talking so much about you want that struggle and you want that growth. You think,
You
and
need,
that made
you,
me think of your love of Elden Ring and the Dark Souls games, because I feel like
you,
that
be-
those games are all about pushing you forward and making you
oh
grow like
yeah,
that.
yeah, these games are about a masochistic struggle because you're getting beat down a lot. But maybe there comes the pleasure, you just try again and
You think
again
that's
and
what
again
adds the
and again.
meaning to it? Is that challenge?
Yeah, that this is one of the things because I don't know how many people finish Elden Ring or the Dark Souls guys, like 5% or even less. And then you can just like I did it because I persisted because I died like 500 times on this stupid spot. But it does work, and it gives you not a meaningful, but it gives you uh, an incentive to keep on going because you're building up resilience and resistance. A lot of modern games are not built to be resistant. They're just built on you have a nice weekend, you're just shooting some guys, you're just jumping off a plane, everything is exploding. Yay, nice. Level 2, then something else is exploding, then you're shooting do 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 do, and then one boss, and the game is finished. This is what Call of Duty is. It's a beautiful journey. It's like complete adrenaline rush for 6 hours. But after that, you're thinking, what was the game all about again? What was the bad guy? The one with the eye patch? No, maybe not. I don't know. I don't
But there's
remember.
room for both of that, right?
It is, of course. But this is the beauty of designing a game. So for people who love to struggle and people who don't love to struggle. For the people who don't love to struggle, you can bind in RPG mechanics. So if you're not good at the game for whatever reason, you can just level up, and at some point it becomes easy. This is a way how to do it. You just grind it up.
Yeah, I never thought of RPG being as a way to like, because I always think of it as that's just the natural progression of the game. But you're saying that that's literally to sort of alleviate challenge.
Yes. This is a fine-tuning mechanic to alleviate challenge. So let's say the old games, they didn't have micro or just real RPG mechanics. Why should they? For example, most shooters, I don't remember having any RPG mechanics. Now you have the Fallouts, the
You don't upgrade in GoldenEye.
oh, I didn't play GoldenEye. I didn't have an N64, so here I completely missed out on that area. I had the Dreamcast after that, which was kind of a good
Oh, you came to
history.
the dark side, the Sega side.
Seconds. Yeah, there was like Power Stone, one of the best games ever made for Capcom.
Oh, that's
Oh,
the
which
fighting
one?
game, right?
Yeah, you just beat the hell out of each other in a small area.
A fighting
It's
game, yes. That's what I
it's
said.
a fighting game. It's completely stupid and it is fun as hell.
Now, what's cool
It's
about that one is most fighting games are like side by side. You know what I mean? Whether it's
Mhm.
Smash or Street Fighter, but there's sort of the 360 movement in Power Stone, if I recall right.
Yep. So basically, this is like a Smash Bros, but just in 3D.
Yeah, which I think is unique. I don't think there's a lot of fighting games like that, and it'd be cool to something to go back to it. There's a really good one. You're probably tired of me talking about Sonic, but Sonic Battle on the Game Boy Advance was, I believe, inspired by. Well, it feels like it's inspired by Power Stone, but it's also sort of a 360 sort of fighting game, and I thought was pretty unique. But didn't get the credit it deserves for that type of thing. But not every game does. But
Not this is the sad thing. A lot of great games are still out there, but they don't get the credit. And some games are just getting credit because they are old, they are rare. So, for example, Earthbound. Oh, I hated the RPG mechanics. They were so terrible. But this game is beloved by a lot of people.
yeah,
I
you
couldn't.
just made so
I,
many
ca-
people mad just now.
Yeah, this is the way it goes, you know. I try to get into it, and I don't know. After 5 6 hours, I hate the RPG mechanics. They make me stupid each time I play it.
I love it.
I wish I could skip them and just go through the storyline, which is pretty good.
Oh, so they got you reversed now. Now you want to skip the mechanics
The
and
bad
listen to the dialogue.
But just imagine, let's say, for example, I played, I don't know, all the Final Fantasy games like 6, 7, 8, 10, 10, 2, the chicks. All of them are pretty good, and the storyline is pretty neat. But the RPG mechanics are just filler, you know. It's just, grinding up to level 99 to beat, I don't know, like a boss with bazillion health points, which is kind of funny, you know. This is a challenge of itself also. But still, it did it correctly. But let's say you don't have those mechanics of fighting. The game would be just with cutscenes, I don't know, 5 6 hours long, maybe longer. But how do you, for example, stretch a game? Because those RPG mechanics are stretching the game to 100 hours, 200 hours sometimes.
Do you think
Because
that RPG mechanics are inherently filler?
no. They just give context to the world. So basically, they're not just filler. They're some cool interaction because you're just beating up some big monster in the end. And then, for example, you build up your resources. You do micromanagement. You just keep the player busy with stuff.
But you think that they
Um,
can easily be made into filler? Is that fair?
but most of them are filler. So let's say, for example,
Okay.
you would just instantly go into level 99. What's the point then of the game? You just one shot everything. It's boring.
You
Or
need
you
that
can do
challenge, right? That
you
challenge
need
you
that
talked about,
challenge.
the struggle.
Or you can do something really interesting. There was one guy he did this for Final Fantasy VII. He played the first level all the time until he reached level 99, and then it took him like I don't know 6 months or 7 months to do that. Every day, 8 hours of grinding on this one spot. Can you imagine 8
Yeah.
hours a day or even
And then he
longer?
just cleared the rest of the game so easily after that?
No, that was just a challenge. How long did it take him to just level up to 99? That's it. Just 6, 7 months or even longer. I guess it's called Dick Tree. The guy, that was his name. He's now legendary status or whatever. But still, this is a perfect way of wasting, I don't know, half of a year for nothing.
So,
But it's valid.
okay, that was going to actually make you think of, have you seen the things about where you see this in Steam reviews a lot, where people are sort of valuing games based on like the time sink, right? Like, oh, this
Mhm.
game was good, but it wasn't enough hours, therefore bad review score or anything. Have you seen any of this?
Yes, and it's actually you cannot compare that in a good way. So let's say you have an excellent game. It's a cool, really. Let's say once again, Call of Duty. 6 hours of adrenaline rush. It's a cool game. You played it. You're super satisfied, but then it's over. There's no point of replaying. Maybe some multiplayer, but let's say you're just single player focused. But then you say like 6 hours, not worth my $60. But then you go one of those RPG games, and I forgot which one it was, and you can just spend ungodly amounts of grinding. And then you got your 1,000 hours or 2,000 hours or five. I don't know. For example, Skyrim, I ramped up, I don't know, 600 hours in this one game. Why? Because it was fun. So in the end, it's if you just do this metric of time and content, you will never find a sweet spot here. But of course, a lot of people just use it as a metric to say like, hey, I'm not gonna buy this game because it's just 6, 7 hours. But a
Yeah.
lot of indie games are just 6, 7 hours. So what do you do?
Yeah, I don't know. It really disappoints me that people think of games like that. Because to me, I think completely about the quality of those hours and not necessarily their quantity. You know, example again. I've talked about Sonic enough. I have a Sonic poster behind me, but no surprise. Sonic 3 and Knuckles, my favorite game of all time. You can beat that game in 2 hours. I've been playing it since I was a kid, and I play it at least once every year. It's just really, really fun. Like I don't care that it's only 2 hours. It's what those 2 hours mean to me. To me, to saying that a game is like, oh, it was only 6 hours, therefore it's not worth it. What that's
Mhm.
saying is those 6 hours weren't compelling and engaging enough to justify like their length. Like I don't. To me, it's just a weird metric because I'm like, I could play 20 hours in a game, and if the game's boring, what does it matter? I could play 1 hour in the most fun game I've ever played. It's that level of compellingness. It's not about the time sink. It's about what it does to me during those hours, during the time. Do you get what I'm
Mhm.
saying?
I do, but for example, you playing Sonic is more like a ritual. So let's say you have every year a Christmas, and every year you play Sonic and Knuckles. Because for you, it's you just internalized, hey, that's the thing which I'm looking forward to. And, on Christmas you always have this apple pie, and maybe on Christmas I'm playing Sonic and Knuckles because this is the thing you love to do. It's a tradition. You like to do this. So this is kind of a ritualistic thing in your direction. But for the general consumer, it's maybe a little bit different. But just going back to quantity and quality of hours, there's no real metric for that. As long as you enjoyed it, it's good. But of course, a lot of people just say
That's what
like,
I'm saying.
stop playing video games. You can do something more productive. You can go to the gym, or you can fly with a helicopter, or you can learn some languages. But in the end, we just play video games. It's nicer. We just do it. But as long as we do it consciously, just say like, hey, I love video games. I love playing. And if it's 6 hours or just 2 hours, it doesn't really matter. You had a great experience. This is what it all counts.
Yes.
So this is what's all about.
Yeah, I don't think that having fun is unproductive. Do you know what I mean?
But just imagine what you're doing when you're playing video games. You're 6 hours in front of a screen. Your body is kind of in one motion. You're just doing that for 6 hours.
Yeah.
kind of an unnatural state. You're being, I don't know how you call it, a little bit hypnotized. But this is an interactive thing. If you, for example, just take away the controller, then you're watching TV. So what's the difference here?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, there's like the weird stereotype where people binge Netflix for 6 hours. They're like, this is perfectly. I am a productive citizen, and they're like,
yeah. That's
this guy over here playing games for hours. Like, what? It's like, I mean, it's not much, but at least my fingers are moving. Something's happening.
And you're getting great reflexes. This is kind of an interesting. So let's say the older generation don't have these kind of lightning reflexes, for example, we gamers have, because we can move the mouse really fast and use all this stuff. And you can just say like, okay, this is just a minor skill, but you can see it. When older people just move with their mouse upwards and then they click and misclick. And then they just go with their mouse a little down. And then as a young person, you're like, come on, it's so easy. But
Yeah.
different kind of metrics, people, in the end, it does not matter. For example, if you just watch TV or if you binge on video games, as long as you enjoy it and you see it as a valuable thing for yourself. That's it. That's why I love video games and I love making them. And then, for example, if just two people just say like, hey, I loved your game, I spent so many hours, and I'm thinking to myself, I wouldn't spend myself these many hours for that game. Thank you. That's a big compliment.
Yeah.
And I guess the same goes for you. For example, if your game's already out, correct?
Yes.
And how many people just said like, hey, I loved it. I had a great time. It was bringing me back to these days.
Oh, hundreds. It was insane.
And this is your reward, which is great.
Yeah. I got the day it came out, it was just my Twitter was broken with the amount of notifications. It was that was so heartwarming. Just people I had people tell me like, hey, I loved Sonic when I was a kid, and now I have a kid of my own, and so we've been playing this game together, and it's been like a really good bonding thing with like me and my son. And I'm like, how wholesome is that? Like, that's wonderful, right? How do you not smile
Definitely.
when you hear something like that? So it's really cool stuff.
And for example, you can go, and I'm gonna piss off a lot of people right now. So, for example, Star Citizens. Let's say you invested 10 years ago, and maybe in 10 years the game is out. Then you can show your children, hey, 20 years ago I invested in this game, and now you can play it. But then they will be like, Gramps, it's old technology. We don't play that anymore.
It's like, shut up, Gramps. Let me hop in my teleporter real quick.
Yeah, something like this, or my super hollow lens, whatever I'm having right now.
It's like, is that video game compatible with my brain chip? And you just like, you're in the game in your mind.
Yeah, but this stuff we're gonna have at some point, which is kind of fascinating. So we started with VR and AR. I guess you know the distinction between those two.
Yes.
Okay, so basically AR is pretty sweet. Also, military already uses it, and the Google glasses already had that. So that was pretty sweet. So you can do some searches or records. Or for example, if you're on a date, you're like, oh, what should I say? Google. Okay, and then you can just cheat a little bit.
Your hair looks nice.
Something like this, but it doesn't work. You could just you have an additional information layer, which is pretty sweet. And at some point, people will see this as a completely normal thing.
You have a UI, basically,
Yes, with some gimmicks and
yeah. I would have my Google Glass where it says I have one life left at the bottom at all times, just to remind me.
But this is kind of cool. So, for example, we've seen this Pokemon thing where people just running around and just collecting stuff and going into, I don't know, a sheriff's office where they're not supposed to be. I don't know why they pinpointed that, and they just went in there. Or some people just jumped off cliffs because they were just looking at their phones and just bam, falling down. And then they had like to put on the sign, "Please don't walk here." It's like they put a fence around. It's like no more Pokemon players here.
No more Pokemon here.
But this is cool. This is one of the fascinating things of modern technology. I love that. More of it. Sadly, I guess it died off because it doesn't have the hype anymore. But I don't play Pokemon games, so
yeah.
maybe it's
same. But yeah, the next thing will come around and come and go. You sort of see the trends rise and fall. And I remember when everyone said VR was just going to take over, everything is going to be VR. I don't think that's happened yet. But ultimately, it comes down to is, are people engaged? Are they having fun? Is it the kind of thing that is going to make them write in and say, hey, played your game. I love it, and that type of thing.
Mhm.
We are at time, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. I think it's been a excellent discussion, One Up Indie. I thank you
Mhm.
so much for coming
That was
on.
Noah.
Can you go and you plug your stuff, plug your YouTube, anything you want? I'll put all the links in it for you.
Yeah, just put in, I guess, my YouTube channel, and that's pretty much it. My channel will not grow for the next 20 years anyway, so just plug this one. It will be all right.
What's the name of your game on Steam again?
But of course, Super Demon Survivors, check it out. It's, I guess, for $3, so
Yeah,
cool graphics, fun gameplay. If you still like the Vampire Survivors game, I don't know if the craze is gone. I guess it's gone. Um, and then the next games will come, I guess, 1, 2, I'm working on 3 right now. So in the next this year will be extremely busy, but kind of
that's
fun games
awesome,
will
dude.
come out. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I'm excited for your super secret, can't tell you about it 80s game, 80s
but
visual
in the
novel,
end,
Dating Pigeons. So thank you, One Up Indie, for joining me. Will you do me a favor and try to sign off with your trademark sign off?
this is One Up Indie. Hopefully, I see you in the next time. And that was it.
One Up Indie.
One Up Indie. One Up Indie. One Up
There it is. I love it.
Indie.
Cool.